Icelocked here with Nocturne Gaming, back with more Valheim, and today we're taking a look at your first armor and weapons. To get started making your armor and weapons, you'll need to find a few materials first. The first is wood, which can be gathered by chopping down any trees or picking up branches off the ground. Stone, which can be found by picking up rocks off the ground, or later in the game can be mined using a pickaxe. After that is flint, and flint can be found along the coastline, so anywhere there's water you have a chance at finding flint. Sometimes it is a little hidden and it's a little deeper in the water, so it can be difficult to gather at points. After that is deer hide, which can be found by killing any deer, and then leather scraps, which is found by killing boars. The last two materials are a little more specific, and the first is bone fragments, which can be found by killing skeletons or in chests that you can find throughout the meadows or black forest. The last one is for resin, and resin can be used to make a torch, but we'll talk a little bit more about the torch later in the guide. After you've gathered your different materials, you'll need to set up a workbench. The workbench does have to be sheltered by a roof, otherwise it's not usable. But once you create the workbench, you'll be able to open up a new menu which will allow you to build different items. In the workbench, there's a few things we need to pay attention to. The first thing that is really important to note is the repair button here. And this repair button will allow you to repair the different items that you have in your inventory. By clicking the item, you can see that my stone axe is repaired now, and that will allow this white progress bar to be refilled. As you're fighting different enemies or using your axe to chop down things or building things, it will drain that progress bar slowly, so using the repair button is a way that you can continue using those tools without having to rebuild it. The next thing that's really important to note is there is a star level on your workbench. The workbench can be upgraded by building different items using your hammer. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the main thing that the star is useful is the upgrade tabs. When you're upgrading different items, it will require a different star level on your workbench before you can upgrade to the next level. So if we look at, for example, our stone axe and upgrade this item, it will increase the damage that it does as well as increase the maximum durability that it has. But the next upgrade will require a different star level, so you'll need to continue building the different upgrade items to be able to continue upgrading your gear and armor. To upgrade your workbench, you'll need to build things such as this chopping block or tanning rack here. And to do this, we need to use our building hammer and access the crafting menu. Any of the items that have a star in the top left-hand corner are some sort of crafting station improvement. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice it says workbench improvement. This means that it's actually an improvement for the workbench. Later in the game, you'll have access to other items that also have the star, but at the bottom it'll say forge improvement or cooking pot improvement, and those will upgrade the different crafting stations. So for each item that we build that has a star that's a workbench improvement, it will actually upgrade the level of my crafting station here. So as we build more things, we'll be able to continue upgrading to, I believe, level 6 on the workbench. This is really late in the game that you'll actually get to the level 6 on the workbench. So for now, we'll focus on this early game area where we have just the chopping block and tanning rack. Now that we have our materials and workbench built, let's talk about building our first weapons. In your basic crafting menu, you'll have access to 3 different weapons, as well as the building hammer. So looking at the stone axe first, it requires wood and stone to build, and its primary damage is slash damage. It can also be used to chop down trees, which makes gathering wood a lot easier after you've built your stone axe. It does have a decent durability on it as well, but you will need to repair this every so often, especially if you're using it to chop down trees. The next option is your club, and it has a primary damage source of blunt damage, but it requires only wood to build. This should be one of your first weapons that you build, as it makes it a lot easier to gather materials such as your leather scraps and deer hide and even bone fragments. The next option is the torch, and the torch does act just like a club, but it has a lot lower durability. The benefit is it only requires 1 wood and 1 resin to build, and resin is obtained by chopping down trees or from the greylings that are running around the area early game. The other function on the torch is to equip it as a secondary weapon. So you can equip a primary weapon such as the club, and then equip your torch as a secondary weapon, which allows you to have a light source as you're running around in the game. Unfortunately, when it's equipped as a secondary weapon, you have no way to actually attack with the torch. However, if you take off the club, you can then attack with the torch by itself. So you can use this as a weapon, and it will allow you to light enemies on fire as a damage source. The other early game weapons you can build are in the workbench itself, and you'll have access to build new weapons such as the flint spear, a crude bow, or even a flint knife. You'll also have access to upgrade your axe into a flint axe, which has a little bit more damage and will allow you to chop trees a little bit faster. You'll also have access to build different types of shields, which can be used to block damage. So we'll talk about the flint spear first, and it requires wood, flint, and leather scraps to build, and its primary damage is piercing damage. The flint spear is also one of the first weapons you'll have access to that has a secondary attack. So by default, the keybind is your middle mouse button, and you'll be able to throw your spear using a secondary attack. Later in the game, you will have access to many more weapons that have secondary attacks, but this is a great option to have both melee and a ranged attack on one weapon early game. Back in the workbench, your next option is your true ranged weapon, which is the crude bow. This does require wood and leather scraps to build, and its primary damage is piercing damage. However, you will need to build different arrows to upgrade your damage or to even use the bow. Early game, it's just wooden arrows and it only requires wood to build, but later on you'll actually be able to make things like fire arrows or ice arrows, which increases the damage as well as changing the damage type that your bow will deal. Your next option is the flint knife, and this is an early game weapon that requires wood, flint, and leather scraps to build, and its primary damage is actually split between slash and pierce damage. But the main thing that we want to focus on for the flint knife is actually its backstab bonus. So with the flint knife, as long as you attack the enemies from behind or they're not alerted before you attack them, you'll currently get about a 6 times damage bonus from your flint knife. This is a great option early game, and it does attack quite a bit faster than other early game weapons. The last option for early game weapons that I want to talk about is actually building a shield. I highly recommend building a shield, and you do have 2 options to build for your shields. First is the wooden shield, and it requires wood, resin, and leather scraps to build. It does have a decent amount of block armor, but its main benefit is that it allows you to have the option of parrying your enemies. It does have a small movement speed penalty as well, so if you're trying to get somewhere quickly, it is recommended to stow your weapons so you can move a little bit faster. The wood tower shield is your other option, and it has the same durability. It only requires wood and leather scraps to build. However, its block armor is quite a bit more, and it will allow you to block a lot more of the damage. On the negative side, it does not have the option to parry attacks, and its movement speed penalty is quite a bit larger. So you'll really need to make sure you're only using this while you're in combat. That's pretty much it for our weapons, so let's talk about our armor next, and you will need to use the workbench to build these items. The first armor set we want to build is the leather set. There's 4 pieces of armor you can build, which is the leather tunic, the leather pants, the leather helmet, and also later in the game, the deer hide cape. Each of the first 3 pieces will give you 2 armor apiece, and the deer hide cape will only give you 1 armor. However, I can't stress this enough that each piece of armor or each point of armor is extremely important, as it does reduce the damage you take by a lot more than 1 point of damage per point of armor. It's actually a multiplicative factor, and it scales as you get through different enemy types, and it drastically increases your survivability. So each of the first 3 pieces of armor will require 6 deer hide to build, and the deer hide cape will also require 5 bone fragments to build. The next thing we need to know is upgrading our armor. So in the upgrade tab, you will be able to upgrade these armor pieces, but it does also require bone fragments to upgrade your different leather armor pieces. Each piece of basic armor only gives you about 2 armor, but each upgrade will give you 2 more armor on that piece of gear. So we can upgrade these different pieces to level 2, and that will allow us to basically double or even triple our survivability for our just upgrading these few pieces of armor. So once we have these pieces built, we can go ahead and equip them. And as you can see, our armor will go up by quite a bit. And early game, having about 14 armor is great. You should be able to survive the first boss and even quite a bit into the Black Forest by using this basic armor set. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this type of content. And a huge shout out to our Patreon members that support the work we do. Thank you from all of us here at Nocturne Gaming. If you would like to become a patron and get some added benefits, check out the link in the description. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, please leave them down below for me, and we'll see you next time.